Some people see that the West has sort of sold out Gaddafi. For instance, the Gaddafi's relationship with Britain has been a controversial one, from Libya's support of the IRA to British investment in Libyan oil, and British cooperation with Gaddafi in the war against terrorism, and even the former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, visit to Tripoli signified a cordial relation going on with Gaddafi. And the next, the bombings.
Well, I mean, you know, you're right. It is a relationship which has attracted controversy within the UK, and there are many commentators in the UK talking about it and examining it. And I think, you know, we'll have to leave that one to the historians as to what actually happened and what the consequences were and what was maybe the right thing to do. I think we all learn lessons all the time, but I think, you know, we've got to look at where we are now. That's the important thing, and the opportunity that the Libyan people now have to build a better and brighter future for themselves and for their children.
When you talk about intervention, let's talk about another conflict area, which is Somalia. What's the role that Britain is doing in order to fight piracy and to help the Somali government? One would think that in supporting the Somali government in strengthening its position within Somalia will actually help fight against international piracy. But it seems that the focus is on defensive, with naval ships and defending cargo ships going back and forth the Indian Ocean, instead of focusing on Somalia itself.
Well, I mean, Somalia is a very complex problem, and it's a whole series of issues which are interlinked. I mean, you've got obviously the question of governance and violence and conflict within Somalia itself. One of the spin-offs of that is piracy, and you've now got this huge drought as well, which is affecting so many hundreds of thousands of people from Somalia. So let me just set out, we do have a significant aid program for Somalia, where we are trying to help the people of Somalia in a humanitarian way. We're giving a huge amount of money to the drought relief operation for Somalia. And I might just mention, actually, the British people, despite the current economic downturn in the UK, actually raised over £70 million by public donation to the appeal for Somalia. That's over $100 million. And then, of course, there is the specific problem of piracy. Now, the problem of piracy is a very complex one, and indeed the whole international community, including Tanzania, is engaged in trying to combat piracy. Britain's role, we're doing a number of things. Yes, of course, we have warships engaged in the international naval effort, which involves the EU, it involves NATO, it involves other combined task force, they're called, and so we have been participating in that. The headquarters for the EU anti-piracy operation is actually in North London. I visited it with the Foreign Minister in March, where attacks against shipping are tracked, and where we try to, you know, they try to work out where the pirates may be attacking next, where you might need to deploy the vessels and send out instructions essentially to the naval fleet. The other thing, though, that we've been doing is chairing one of the 4 working groups which are working with the international community on the contact group on piracy. And the UK has had chairmanship of Working Group 1, which is all about building up capacity so that countries in the region, in particular, can combat piracy. So we've been working through that, and the working group has acted as a sort of a channel, if you like, for aid. And a number of programs have been set in place to try and help countries of the region that are particularly affected by piracy to combat the problem, to deal with the pirates, to arrest them, to prosecute them, to imprison them. And it's been a big part of the program to, because unfortunately at the moment over 90% of pirates who are captured are set free. Either because there isn't enough evidence against them, or because there's nowhere to take them to. Okay. And that's a real problem, because of course it's not really then acting as a deterrence, all this naval effort. Okay. What we need to do is to bring them in, prosecute them, imprison them, give them a, just a fair punishment for what they have done.
Okay. I want to talk about, let's talk about the British royal family and the monarchy.
Yes.
How has the role of the British monarchy evolved from absolute ruler to a ceremonial figure over the years?
Well, that's been that's taken place over hundreds of years, right. Over centuries. I suppose, you go back to, was it 1215 with Magna Carta, when King John signed the first agreement conceding some powers to his nobles. Mm-hmm. And then we had other various, major events in our history. We had a civil war in the middle of the 17th century, and King Charles I, of course, lost his head. And then various other evolutions of our constitution, whereby the kings, if you like, gave up more power, and our parliament came up. And indeed, Westminster is still described as the mother of parliaments. I think it's probably fair to say that it's the first major parliament, should we say, or the first parliament in a major country to have been developed. And so the role of the royal family today, it's not a political role, let's just say that.
So it doesn't hold any significant political power today?
No. I mean, our Prime Minister is the head of our government, and obviously he and his government are elected by the people through our democratic system. So the royal family is largely a ceremonial role. There are some very obscure little constitutional powers that they do maintain. I mean, there was a lot of discussion when the election results came through last time about, who would the Queen invite to form the next government, for example. But that was resolved. The royal family, the Queen is our head of state, and the royal family is a very much loved institution in the UK.
Okay. Prince Charles is due to visit Tanzania soon.
Yes.
What is the significance and what's the purpose of his visit here?
Well, the reason for the visit is it's part of the 50th anniversary commemorations to mark the 50th anniversary of independence of what was then, of course, just Tanganyika in 1961 from the UK, became Tanzania slightly later on. And it's part of that. I think it's a 3-month period that the government has declared for celebrations to mark the 50th anniversary, culminating, of course, on the 9th of December. So he's coming out as part of that, and he'll be here for 3 days. His programme, though, is going to very much, be focused on the bilateral relationship. As I said, it's a very modern and a very broad partnership between Britain and Tanzania. So partly looking back to 1961, but very much anchored in the present and the future.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the wedding of Catherine Middleton. Yes. The recent wedding.
Yes. And Prince William. Yes.
And Prince William.
Absolutely, yes.
Is there significance that Catherine hasn't got any aristocratic connections?
I think, obviously, people would agree that it shows the evolution of the royal family, that it is becoming a modern institution, and it is very much in touch with the people of today, if you like. That there isn't this need for the prince to marry an aristocrat or a princess or anything like that. And I think that clearly people in Britain and around the world have very much taken Catherine Middleton, now the Duchess of Cambridge, of course, very much to their hearts.
It was a big media event, and it attracted a lot of attention. Why do you think that is? Is it because of the kind of celebrity culture that is happening today?
I think, it's hard to say really, but I think that there is something special about the royal family. I think, I've seen it before actually, when I was working in Germany, and Prince Charles came out and visited us there. And there is a certain charisma about the royal family and about royalty, which is very different from politicians or even celebrities, if you like. I think it's partly because they do represent such a long-standing institution, But also, they are in their roles for a long time, and I think they have, they develop important work, as Prince Charles has. But yes, I mean, it was, we had a great day here in Tanzania at the end of April. I hosted a large party in my house, mostly for members of the British community, because a lot of them came and they felt they wanted to, they wanted their children to see our future King and Queen. And on their wedding day, but also, a great many Tanzanian friends, people from the Commonwealth and elsewhere around the world really wanted to come and see and join in the occasion, the sense of celebration.
What does the royal family mean for Britons and for people around the world? I mean,
I think in a way it's a sort of it's hard to say, but I think in a way it's almost. It's part of our identity, I suppose. When people talk about Britain, yes, they can talk about, Manchester United or the Beatles or, whoever it is, the latest pop stars or whatever. But also, the royal family. It's all part of what is a fairly diverse, but I would say rich sense of identity that I think we have.
Finally, I want to talk about a little bit about the constitution reform process that's happening here in Tanzania. What is the importance of having this? I mean, Britain. I want to make a little comparison with Britain. Britain does not have a written constitution.
That's
yet it
yes.
functions very, very according to the law.
Yes.
To have what is the important? Is it important to have a written constitution anyway?
I mean, just to say, although we don't have a single written document, which is our constitution, we do have a number of documents which I suppose go up to make the constitution, if you like. And also, inevitably, there are some traditions as well. In Britain, we've had a long time to develop our constitution, and therefore the institution, if you like, becomes very much accepted. There's a very broad acceptance for it. I think, in other countries they have a different experience, and the Americans, for example, obviously have a written constitution, one of the first, and virtually all countries have a written constitution. I think there's maybe a peculiar set of circumstances in Britain where we don't quite have that, but as I say, we do have written laws which set out the powers within the constitution, if you like, or constitutional powers. So I think every country, again, it's down to democracy, if you like. It's what the people want, what the people of that country want, and how they see the best way of setting out their constitutional powers and their constitutional framework.
I don't know if you've been following up. There have been different groups trying to get representation in the reform process, the constitutional reform process, including human rights, including gays' rights, including homosexuality, including marginalized groups in society. Do you think it's a good thing that the reform process is happening and Tanzania gets a new constitution 50 years from independence?
I mean, I think, as a representative of a foreign government, it's not necessarily for me to say what's right for Tanzania. But I think, clearly the government has committed to this process. And I think that they, it's the kind of process where it's important for a broad range of groups, a broad range of people to be involved. So there'll be a lot of consultation around it. Because, I suppose the more people you have involved, the more buy-in you get to it, the more commitment that you get to it, the more sense of ownership, which of course is really important for a constitution. Of course there's issues and controversy about exactly how that process of consultation should take place, and I'm not going to get involved in that. That's not really for me to determine, that's down to Tanzanians to determine. But I think, yes, it's a process, it's a very important process. It's something that, it's important, I suppose, for everybody to have a sense of ownership about.
One final question is, where do you see the future of bilateral relations between Tanzania and Britain going?
Well, I think, we've got good, solid bilateral relations, and I think that, we will continue to grow together. I think that, we will remain a firm partner for Tanzania, and I'm sure that Tanzania will remain a firm friend of Britain too.
On that positive note, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We just ran out of time. I'd like to thank my guest, the British High Commissioner to Tanzania, Her Excellency Diane Corner.